Guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to spend some time with me and watch the video. Always very grateful for that. Guys, today out of popular demand, I'm going to tell you guys the complete story about how I sunk my boat and won my first Bassmaster Top 100 tournament years ago. If I have one claim to fame in fishing, it's that. Ever since I won that tournament by sinking my boat in 1989, I've had thousands of people comment on that, want to know about it. It just sort of stimulated everybody's imagination. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to finally address that, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened, exactly how I won the tournament, and exactly about the sinking the boat in today's video. Also, guys, we're getting to today's video, just a couple quick housekeeping tips. Just like to invite everybody out there, if you haven't had a chance, to please consider subscribing here at Intuitive Angling. It's free and easy. If I say something to make you mad, you can always unsubscribe. And also, I'd like to invite you, if you guys are looking for some good deals on tackle, to go into the description of my video. Every video I put it in there, and you'll see my tackle warehouse link. If you guys use and bookmark that link, that's a great way to support the channel and give something back if you're inclined to do so for the exchange of information here. So much appreciated. Okay, guys, this was, like I said, I've gotten so many people asking about this. This is like, at the time when I did it, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it just sort of went viral after it happened. And I want to go into the entire situation leading up to this and how it happened, because I think it's a pretty interesting story. But this was October of 1989, and I was a struggling bass angler. I had made the Classic in 1986. I missed it in 87 and 88, and I was sort of on that type of deal where I was, struggling to stay afloat. And this was our first tournament of the year, Bugs Island Lake, Kerr Reservoir in Virginia. And I'd never been there before. I didn't know anything about it. This was back before we had GPS, but all we had was paper maps and a flasher. No cell phones. You had to use the payphone to call home if you were on the trip. So I didn't know anything about that place. And as fate would have it, as sort of a gift from the universe out there, there was a hurricane that had came up the East Coast a couple weeks prior to our tournament there. And in that particular hurricane, it dumped a ton of rain on the entire coast there. And the lake, the Kerr Lake, it came up a bunch. It came up like, 7 or 8 feet, super, super high. Got to close the garage door here while I'm just playing Oculus. So, and I didn't even know much about this. I didn't even, know this was going on until I got down there, because, like I said, this was back before you had any information. I didn't pay attention to what the weather was in Virginia, living in Missouri. So anyway, I get there to Bugs Island Lake, and the only thing that I had, or the only information that I knew about the lake, was when I got to the lake and I started driving around the lake. I got there the day before the tournament started, practice started. I could see the lake was flooded out and in the bushes. And I'm like, this is awesome, because that's how I grew up fishing. I mean, I grew up flipping flooded willow trees, my whole bass fishing career here at Fishing Grand Lake and Table Rock and Missouri Lakes. And, my guys hear me talk about my old mentor, Terry Thomas. He taught me how to flip. He taught me how to flip willows. I became a master at willow flipping. So when I saw those willows there, I said, man, this is right up my alley. So anyway, in practice, the water was up pretty high still. There were still 5 or 6 feet of water in the bushes. And I started flipping the bushes down on the lower end of the lake in the clear water. And I was getting a lot of bites. I mean, I was doing really good. I was catching I probably could have caught 20 pounds a day in practice. But the problem was the water was dropping fast. I mean, super fast. And the water on that lower end was really clear. So my bites were going down every single day. And the first day of the tournament, I went in there to, that same area down the lower end of the lake, and I only caught 4 fish that weighed 9 pounds. And I was sort of in the middle of the pack. And the water had dropped. It had dropped, probably close to 3 feet, and there was only like this much water in those clear water bushes. The fish just moved out of them. So anyway, this was a 4-day tournament. This was back when the Bassmaster Top 100s were 4-day tournaments. So I knew I had to make an adjustment the second day. So my thought process was, okay, the water's dropping hard. and there's willows all over the lake, you know, obviously. So I have got to find the dirtiest water that I can find, because I knew that if I could find the dirtiest water, that the fish, even if the water was dropping and low in those bushes, there's a good chance I could still catch them in those bushes flipping in the dirty water. So what I did that second morning, I just looked at the map and I ran way up the lake, you know, almost as far as I could go. And there was a fairly good sized creek up there that I had never seen before. I didn't know anything about it, nothing. And I just said, I'm gonna run to the back of this creek and just start fishing my way out, because I knew that that probably would be the most dirty water. And I got to the back of the creek, and there was a bridge in the back of the creek. And the water was so high, there was only like maybe, I don't know, foot and a half, probably foot and a half of clearance between the top of the bridge and the water. And I could look underneath there. I got down to the water level, and I could see there was a ton of beautiful looking willow trees back there. And I knew that the water had been so high for 2 weeks prior. I knew nobody had been back in there in 2 weeks. It was just untouched water. And I said, I got to figure out how to get in there. So at the time I had a Ranger 350, the Ranger 350. And I'd seen the commercials with Forrest Wood about, you know, they cut holes in the Rangers and they won't sink. So I said, I'm just gonna see if I can flood this boat and sink it down. So I pulled the plug on the boat, reached around the back, pulled the plug out, started filling the boat with water. And then I started taking off. I took off my motor cowling, I took off the trolling motor, I took off the windshield, and the boat sunk down. The boat completely flooded full of water, where it was the water was flooded up to the seats. So it sunk it down, and me and my partner, my co-angler, he got on the back deck, I got on the front deck. Water was almost to the top of the front deck, and we pushed our way back in there under this bridge. We sort of had to push it with our hands as we went back in there, and got underneath there amazingly. And I got underneath there, I put the plug back in, I bilged the boat out, and idled back to the back of the creek and started flipping. And there was one little cove back there. In the back of this creek, there was like a cove off of the creek. And this cove was it was small. It was probably maybe 100 yards, 150 yards long, and maybe 75 yards long, completely lined with thick willow trees. And I went in there and I started flipping. I was flipping a 1/2 ounce jig with pork frog on it, number 1 pork frog, 30-pound test line. And in one pass around that cove, I had 24 pounds, all big ones. I had 5 bites that weighed 24, almost 25 pounds, and I left. So run back into the weigh-in there, and after the second day, I take the lead in the tournament. I went from 50-something place to lead in the tournament. So the next day I get back in there and the water's dropping even further. So this time I, sunk the boat down, and I got in there a little bit easier. And also I got back in there and started fishing just a couple minutes. And then here comes Denny Brower. Denny Brower did the same thing. He got back in there. He wasn't in there the day before, but he got back in there. So I knew that with Denny in there, this area wasn't real big. I pretty much knew I had to commit to that one little cove where I caught the 24 pounds, because I didn't want Denny going in there because it wasn't that big. So anyway, I got in there and started fishing. And right off the bat, I catch 3 close to 5 pounds. So I've got three that weighed almost 15 pounds, like the first pass. The second pass, I make 3, and I was working as slow as a snail. I mean, I was hitting every nook and cranny that I could in there. And the second pass, I went around there. I'll never forget it. I flipped in this one bush and I set the hook, and it's a freaking giant. I set the hook and I got the fish out of the bush, freaking mouth this big. And that fish starts smoking in the middle out there, and it jumps. It's a giant. It's like a 9, maybe a 10 pounder. It's huge. And I'm fighting this thing, and I get it up by the boat, and it's going under the boat and this and that. And finally it comes up right by the boat and jumps off about 5 feet away from the boat. I go, you gotta hit me like that. So it's like, losing a 9 pounder after losing, and I wasn't getting that many bites. They were just all big. I never caught any small ones. They were all big ones when I got a bite. So I worked around the other side of the cove. Same deal. I flipped in this willow tree way back in there, set the hook. It's another giant. This one's probably a 7 pounder. Got it out of the bush, fighting it in open water. It comes up and jumps off, and lost that one. So I lost a 9 and a 7 that second day. That's the only 5 bites I had. And what was happening is that it's typical when you're flipping in that thick stuff like this, and this was back when I was using monofilament. When you set the hook, I mean, a lot of times you got the lines over a limb and you can't get a good hook. So I go in that next day or that afternoon, I'm still leading the tournament. I got like a 4-pound lead because I had a good bag. I had 3 fish that weighed almost 15 pounds. So I got like a 4-pound lead over Gary Klein in the tournament. And the last day of the tournament, I just, the water's dropping even more. And I'm talking, guys, there wasn't 12 inches of water. There was probably 12 inches of water in those willow trees. And I just said, I'm going to commit to this particular area here, especially if I can just get bit. And right off the bat, like the first 5 minutes, I caught a nice one, like a 3-pounder or something like that. And I just slowed down like a snail, and I got 5 bites. I made 2 passes around the cove. That's how slow I was fishing. And I caught 5 fish that weighed 15 pounds that last day, and wound up winning the tournament by 4 or 5 pounds. So that was a life-changing deal. At the time I won, I think it was $55,000 that I won in that back in 1989. It enabled me to get some better sponsors, enabled me to get a little bit of financial security, and gave me confidence that that I could compete and win. And over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, I think I won like 7 or 8 different fully rigged boats on Bassmaster Tour, because that's back when they used to give away a new boat or a truck for the top three places. So it gave me the confidence that I could compete and win. And that's sort of the story of the whole thing, but it's definitely something I'll never forget. But I just wanted to share that story with you guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll talk later.